Bhaskar from SRIB Bangalore, and he will be talking on various commercial applications of NLP using deep learning. Dr. Pinaki Bhaskar, currently working as Senior Chief Engineer 2 in Advanced Technology Lab in Samsung Research India, Bangalore. Earlier in his career, after completing PhD from Jadavpur University on NLP, worked as a postdoctoral fellow in the National Research Centers in Italy, where he worked on biomedical question answering system. Then he joined Samsung Research in 2015 and since then working on various AI systems which are based on text intelligence. Now, may I request you, sir, to kindly start the keynote presentation?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, thanks a lot, first of all, for giving me this opportunity to share my experience, especially in the industrial experience. So, let me share my slide. Okay, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, yeah. So, I saw that today, and I think yesterday also, various speaker talks about several NLP modules and the techniques, and especially using deep learning, how you uh, can improve those existing models like language model to like other NLP problems also. So, but today my talk will be more or less on the how you apply those NLP using deep learning to build a commercial level system. Okay, so let me set the platform first. So can I ask now who are the participants, like how many are the for the faculty members, or how many are the PhD scholars, so that I can uh, like explain accordingly? Or is there any graduate or undergraduate student? Dr. Singh?
Uh, sir, here generally are mostly faculties and research scholars.
Okay, okay, good. So, yeah, so now if I see like all the research going on, especially in the NLP, because NLP domain, it's a very old domain, right? So it started more than 50 years back, the research on the NLP domain. So initially it started from the machine learning, majorly rule-based machine learning, then it's grown and then come to current stage. But whatever research is happening, uh, how many commercial application we are getting nowadays using those NLP technique, that actually we will try to understand in this talk. Okay, so let's go with some basics, like what is the artificial intelligence, because this is the most hype topic nowadays in the research industry, right? So everyone and every industries and every uh, domain of expertise, if all the researchers actually working for the artificial intelligence system. So what is artificial intelligence? So earlier, like John McCarthy says that the science and the engineering of making intelligence machine, especially intelligence computer, right? So that time, the AI considered to be if a program or a machine is intelligent enough, so they call it as a artificial intelligence, right? But later, you can think about artificial intelligence is a way of making computer or computer controlled robot or a software thinking intelligently in a similar manner the intelligent human think, right? So you can clearly see the change in the definition. Like earlier, first it was based on the performance. Now it's changed to based on the thinking, right? So unless some software or some program or some computer or some machine is able to think intelligently, it is not being considered as a AI system, right? But now current days, like AI is accomplished like by how human brain think. Not only how human brain think, it also how it learn, decide, and then work. Okay, so when human try to solve something, uh, its use is intelligence, its natural intelligence to solve the problem first, right? And if he could not solve, or even he can solve, he actually learn something by that process. So unless you automatically learn, it is not considered nowadays as a AI system, right? So there are two things: perform intelligently, like solve problem intelligently, then think to solve. Basically, you have to think intelligently, and then out of everything you learn something. Okay, so this is how the AI stands nowadays. But if you see all of our NLP techniques, so okay, I will come to that later. So now, what is NLP, right? So NLP basically as a field of intersection in of computer science or and artificial intelligence and linguistics, right? So basically, you use the knowledge of linguistics in a through the computer science programming or software development to build a artificial intelligence system, right? So the goal is to basically to understand the natural language. Okay, so in order to you can perform some perform some task. So task maybe, for example, a question answering. So if you want to build a question answering system, definitely you have to understand the questions and you have to understand some document, and then understanding both, now you find out the perfect answer or accurate answer to uh, identify the perfect answer, right? So this is the kind of NLP uh, we work on, right? Uh, but in this, for this task, even for the question answering, we generally what we do, we have some domain for the question answering, and to solve that question answering task on that domain, we actually apply some techniques to understand for that task and on that domain, right? So we don't understand everything. Basically, the NLP system does not understand everything. But so that's why, but the ultimate elusive goal of the NLP is to understand the represent the meaning of the language, right? So that's why it's a AI complete problem, because if you go try to build a generic domain question answering system, so you have to understand everything, and that's now in current scenarios or current capability of each NLP techniques, it's almost like an impossible task, like understanding everything, right? So now, so we actually, so if you see the progress of the structure of the NLP levels, so there are two kind of input for NLP. One is speech and one is text, right? Now, speech you can break in the minimal speech unit of is a phonetic unit. Okay, so you need a phonological analyze to find out each unit. And for text, if it is a printed text, then you have to apply OSHIA to identify the text. And then you need to, once you have the text form, raw text, you have to tokenize to identify the basic units like words of a text, right? Now we do generally morphological analysis. So morphological analysis basically to analyze each words and identify its prefix, suffix, and the stem form or root form. So these are the morphological analysis, and then we do the syntax analysis over a sentence. So how grammatically the sentence have been represented. So that is called syntactic analysis, right? So in English, generally subjects come first, and then verb, then objects, and then the clause. So those identifying those subject, object, verb, and the clause, everything is a kind of syntactic analysis. Now, once you understand the syntax, now the toughest job is to understand the semantic, right? So what actually those words, those through those syntax, what the meaning actually represented. So understand that is called the semantic understanding. So that you call, beyond NLP, that we call NLU, like language understanding, not just processing. You have to understand the semantic meaning, right? And then the discourse processing, like in a document, like in paragraph level or in a document level, what are the basically the meaning overall, because each sentence have a individual meaning, and then if you put together all the sentence meaning together, then in a paragraph level or in a document level, what is the actually the topic or the meaning of the document. So now, the application. So what are the current application of NLP? So coming from a very simple application, like, and very useful also, like spell checking, right? So everyone we use to speak, check the spell, right? Or some keyword search, like if you have a document, you want to search some keywords, so you have to identify the words and then you have to match the words. So that is, or the finding the synonyms, like from the dictionary. So those are the basic application of the NLP. But for those application, you don't need to understand even the syntax, right? So it's basically word level analysis. But if you go further, application, like you want to extract the information from some text or from some website. So let's say you want to identify the product, some product price or the date or the location or the company name. So now you need to understand the text. So by understanding the text, you have to identify which one is the product price, or which one is the product name, or which one is the location. So for identifying that, sometimes identifying or understanding syntax is good enough to identifying, let's say, price or location. But if you apply semantic understanding, then it will be much more accurate, right? So you can able to resolve some syntactical ambiguity also. Then further complex application will be like classifying or reading some text, or identifying the positive or negative sentiments from the document. So these are the much more complex, because for classifying or identifying the sentiment of the document, you actually now really need to understand the semantic of the each sentence as well as the whole document, if you are doing in the document level. So that involves the much more semantic analysis to perform those application. And then obviously, as I mentioned, that ultimate, it was started also from this application, like machine translation. So machine translation has been tried for several years, like, and I guess till now it's not completely solved problem. And over the time, various technique has been applied. Earlier, it used to be through human translation. Now, when NLP started with the rule-based translation, then some statistical and probabilistic translation. Now, the many deep learning algorithm and network has been proposed to solve the machine translation. So it's a very difficult NLP problem, because not only you have to understand the text, you have to understand the text, and you have to understand the language model of two different language. There will be source language, there will be target language. You have to understand those language model, and then whatever the text are written, so you have to understand that text and then generate the text into the target language. So that not only involves that understanding, it involves the natural language generation also, because you are generating the text in the target language. And definitely spoken dialogue system is much more complex and the question answering, because the way human talk, currently no system can have that kind of dialogue, because to have human level dialogue, you have to understand everything. Like you have to understand semantic, you have to understand language model, and you have to understand all the pattern to represent a semantic, right? So that is basically language model. So it's deeper understanding of language model, the humor, the sentiment, the emotion, everything, to have a proper dialogue. And question answering, because question answering, the domains can be so broad that if you want a generic question answering, so you have to understand everything. So these are the more or less the growth of the NLP application. So now in industry, if you see, the NLP application started mainly uh, by the search. So when you develop a search engine, so you need to understand the query, right? And as well as the document also. So that actually the starting in the industry, and it's actually very successful in the industry. If you see the other application like the here like sentiment analysis, or the machine translation, or the dialogue system, or even the question answering, those are highly researched topic. Those are in the academy also, academy especially. But if you want to find a uh, commercialized system, you will not get that much accuracy which has been reported by the academic research, right? So that's the gap actually. So that's the intention of this talk also. So how to so discuss that, how to uh, bridge that gap, or how to narrow down that gap. Okay, so then the another main is the online advertising. So for online advertising, to understand the users interest, or the advertisement topic, and then matching, so that actually is another level of understanding, right? So, and the NLP application. And then as I mentioned, that automated translation also. And then sentiment analysis is hugely nowadays applied for marketing or trading, because once you identify user sentiment, or the sentiment in the advertisement also, so to match this and then correctly identified the targeted or interested user, that is the main goal of this marketing job, right? And then speech recognition, nowadays everyone we know that we hugely like the use of like smart assistant like Google Assistant or the Siri, so that increased a lot. And nowadays people started using those smart assistant very frequently. So that requires a speech recognition, because mostly the interaction with the smart assistant is through the speech. Like user hardly type any command, or doesn't like to do give a text input. So there actually you need a very high quality speech recognition, and I have to say that Google did a perfect job to build a very accurate speech recognition system. And then yes, some of the companies also trying to build a automated customer support, right? So you nowadays you I think almost every customer support system implemented some IVR, like you press 1 2 for this kind of thing to navigate uh, some path, so that it will be directly to reach to the appropriate expert, human expert. But how to reduce that also, so that that automated customer support system can automatically interact with user, and can identify the user problem, and also give the perfect solution. So that is the goal of the automated customer support system. So these are the mainly the industrial uses currently of NLP applications. So now you can see, so each systems requires various level of NLP or language understanding, right? So So none of these application is not a point solution, right? Uh, so that's why uh, the problem in industry still to apply NLP solution is it requires a full-fledged NLP solution. So not only like a sentence parsing, or not only like a sentiment analysis, or not only build a language model for a particular domain, but it can perform all the tasks of basic NLP. Okay. So now comes to the complexity of the NLP problem. So because now you can see the first example, like Amit hit Rahul and then he. So if I don't show you the next word of he, you that he can refer either Amit and Rahul, right? Now when I say that next word is fell, so that means he is Rahul, because Amit hit Rahul, so he fell means obviously Rahul fell. And if I say ran, he ran means obviously Amit hit Rahul, so after hitting Amit ran. So it's very easy for a human to understand this kind of semantic, like if it is fell, then he is Rahul. If it is ran, then he is Amit. But for a system, you can think how difficult this problem is, because the whole syntax more or less the same, just the last word actually defining the semantic of the previous word. Okay, so that's why for a system it's very difficult to identify. So it's called a co-reference resolution. So currently also it's not a solved problem. Many researchers are working, but in so that's one kind of complexity. Now even the next example, so I made her duck, right? So now this sentence is very, the semantic of this sentence without any context, right? If you don't know the what are the previous sentence or what is the topic about, it's very difficult to understand uh, what is the semantic of this sentence. Like I made a duck means that uh, if I am a magician, or through magic I made a duck, or I, let's say, throw something to her and then he duck, she duck. So there are many meaning without the context. So that's also important problem. Like context actually define the meaning of the sentence. So if you can see in this sentence, the the syntax, till syntactic analysis, everything is same. Now to understand the semantic, you need that context to understand the exact semantic. Otherwise, it will be ambiguous, right? So that's why even for human, this second example, human can't say accurately what is the meaning. So you can think about the system, how difficult it will be. So now coming to the deep learning. So I think till like 5 years ago, at least in India, uh, like very few people actually started with applying deep learning in NLP. So till now, there are mostly that statistical or probabilistic machine learning algorithm we used to apply. But as I mentioned that, so NLP is so complex problem. So only by the statistics or the build the probability over the statistics is not sufficient enough to solve the semantic level problem. Okay, so let's say here, so how deep learning actually change everything, and there are many advantages of deep learning, so which I will talk about. So let's say here is a NER problem, like you have to identify the named entities. Now in earlier days in the normal machine learning, the main problem was that you need to do the feature engineering. So feature engineering means that you have to identify the each feature, like here the features are listed, the current word, previous word, then the next word, then current words character engram, then current words post tag, then surrounding post tags, then word shape or left window, right window. So, and then also window size, you have to manually choose whether it will be 4 or 3 or 5 or 10. So that feature engineering, that developer or the researcher has to do manually. Once you do the feature engineering, then the model's job to just optimize the model, to optimize the weight to come up a perfect prediction, right? But so this optimization of weight hugely depends on the selection of the feature. So how you select the feature, that depends heavily, the accuracy depends heavily on this feature engineering, right? But when deep learning came, so it's actually automatically try to learn the features from the input. So if you have a raw input, let's say text, so you give the input to the, like this is the input layer, the first layer, you give the input to the network. Sorry. So each layer now try to identify the important feature, right? And then it will come up with the predicted output. So it's a huge benefit, especially for the NLP problem, because earlier days in NLP, all the machine learning techniques, you have to do the feature engineering, right? So now what happened? You give the input. Now model will automatically identify the feature, and based on the identified feature, so based on the learned feature, it will learn to predict the output. So that's a huge advantage. So now you can use, you don't have to work on the feature engineering now anymore. So what you have to do, you have to work on the architecture or the network, how network will learn more and more features, more and more appropriate features, so that it can predict the output perfectly, right? But here I want to mention one more thing. But the problem here, like earlier, if you see, the features are all based on the text, like what is a text unit, right? So you were giving it the current word, previous word. So in a text form, actually you are giving the word, sorry, input. But here in the deep learning, the main problem is this is a vector, right? So every input has to be in a vector form. So now the problem belongs here that you need to convert all text input to a vector representation. So that's the huge problem now, right? So there are many techniques like Word2Vec and GloVe. I will come later in my presentation that how they did. But so all the deep learning initial research has been focused how to convert or how to represent that text input into a vector form, right? So initially it came up with like one out vector, then the Word2Vec, then GloVe, so and then now BERT. So this kind of embedding actually you have to create so that you perfectly represent your text input so that network can learn perfectly. Because unless the input does not uh, represent everything, like everything means the syntax to semantic, everything, if it does not represent, then it cannot learn out of it, right? So that's the now the main problem for the deep learning. So instead of doing feature engineering, you have to focus like how to represent your input in a vector form or in the embedding form. Now the in NLP domain, uh, in speech learning, speech recognition, this deep learning techniques has been get popular because it's actually able to overcome the that time state of the art technique. So now you can see that the earlier state of the work error rate was 27% and 23%, and using the deep learning it is 18% and 16%. This is the old result. So nowadays also it's improved a lot. So this is the initial in 2010 paper I'm referring. So that time this kind of accuracy improvement happened when they use the deep learning technique for the speech recognition. So speech recognition means that from the speech you identify the word only. Okay. So now for the speech recognition, the problem is that speech basically a signal, right? So this is the signal. So now the same problem, how to convert this signal to a vector form. So this is the vector. Once you have the representative vector, then the network will predict the representative text of that speech. But because speech is basically a signal, so these are the numerical value. So it's pretty easy to represent those in a vector form, rather represent a text into a vector form, right? Now in initial days, like how deep learning get popularity, majorly because of the computer vision, because in computer vision is actually create a huge improvement. Like if you can see, I am referring that 2012 paper that from the ImageNet competition. So ImageNet competition is that to identify in the each object and the animals in the picture. So that actually, so earlier days what happened, first of all, this image is basically bunch of pixel, right? To process those pixel, it's very difficult, and you cannot apply any statistical model because it's just a numbers, right? Pixels are basically numbers, so RGB values. But in deep learning, it is most useful because deep learning needs a numerical input. So image are basically nothing but a numerical matrix form. So you can easily give it as an input, and then this is a basically convolutional network. So each convolutional layer is actually, if you can see, try to identify some patterns. So these are the patterns it's identify in the initial level. So you can see that these are the very basic pattern, like mostly straight lines, right? Then in the second layer, it's actually identify some complex pattern with some specific color. Okay. And third layer, it's more complex pattern. And when they apply this pattern over the image, so the image looks like this. So these are basically kind of filter. So if you filter only this kind of pattern, so the image looks like this. Then if you apply more complex filter, then image looks like this, right? And if you apply this much complex filter, then you can see that perfect image you can see. So now using those pattern, they can identify which is the bird or which is the cat, like this. So this is the evolution started from the computer vision, and then after I think 5 years or 10 years, the trend came via speech recognition in the NLP domain. Now, as I mentioned, that representation of the text is the most important task in the NLP problem. So though nowadays many NLP researchers are working on an advanced problem, but still now if you see in industry, especially when we try to build a basic, let's say I want to identify the implement a named entity recognizer. So what I have to do? It's a in named entity recognizer. It's a well researched area in NLP, and almost if you see all the paper, they claim over 90% accuracy. But till now in industry, it's a very tough problem, because when we come when we try to build a generic NER, the accuracy of all the existing models are very poor. Okay, and also not only accuracy in industry, we also focus also on the optimization, like how fast it is, or how much resource or minimum resource it will use, like RAM or the ROM size. So how much it is. So you cannot build a NER system which requires more than 1 GB of RAM, and also identify the named entities which takes more than 1 second. Okay, so these are not applicable at all in the industry, because in industry NER, after identifying the NER, you have to do a lot of other tasks also. So that has to be within at least 10 to 20 milliseconds in the latency terms. And the RAM, because in Samsung majorly we focus on the on-device solution. On-device solution means there is no server. So either the solution runs on the phone or on the watch or on the TV. So if you are trying to do on-device solution, then you have to minimize the RAM usage, because nowadays in the phone you have at max 8 GB or 6 GB is normal nowadays. So out of 6 GB, if your system, your NER is taking 1 GB, then it is no use. It's of no use, right? So this is a very interesting problem in industry, that how to represent a text. So let's revise that. Earlier days we used to do the morpheme analysis, right? So what is morpheme? That if you have this kind of word like uninterested, so you identify the prefix, you identify the root word, and then you identify the suffix, right? And then you stem like this. And in deep learning, so now everything became the vector, right? You have to represent every text as a vector. So the word, unfortunately, if you break, so there is a vector for this prefix un, there is a vector for this root word fortunate. Now the goal to represent the whole word is to that when you combine these two vector like un and fortunate, and come up with a single vector which represent unfortunate, and which will carry both all the information from both these two vector. It will represent un, also it will represent the fortunate. So it will be a combined representation, right? So you have to build some model which actually can combine these two information, these two vector, and come up with a single vector which can represent both, so that it will represent basically eventually the unfortunate it will represent. Now similarly, if you have a vector for the ly suffix, then if you combine these two, so you will come up with a combined vector which will represent unfortunately. Basically this combined vector will have information from all these three vectors, then only it will be useful. So it will represent all the information, means that the vector which represent fortunate and then the vector which represent unfortunate, it should not be very much dissimilar, or very much far apart. Okay, if you plot into a vector space, so those two should be close enough so that you can understand that these two meanings are basically similar. So this is the most toughest problem, I believe, nowadays also. Like even we actually achieved lot of advanced research on the NLP using deep learning, but still how to represent the text properly, it's a still now a unsolved problem. And based on that, how you represent is your network and its accuracy fully depend on this, how you represent your text to a vector. So this is the most famous research, Word2Vec, how they did. So they actually trained a model to identify the vector for each words. I think they trained with trillions of data, and I think more than 10 million unique words are there. Google did that, and then they come up with this kind of vector which actually represent the semantic. If you see the most similar meaning word like spices, baking, or the berries, like food related things are together, or citrus or short, the taste related things are together, that solid, ripe, strong, or the structure, the material related things are together. So almost similar, semantically similar words are represented similarly, so that then the job of the network, to learn the semantic is much more easier. Unless your vector represent the semantic, the network will never able to run the semantic. It will only learn some syntax. Okay. Yeah. So similarly, like if you go in a syntax structure, I saw the we saw the morphological structure representation. A sentence structure, earlier we used to have this kind of sparsity, like sentence at the top level, then the noun phrase, and the noun phrase has another sub-noun phrase, and then another preposition phrase. So like this, and then is a verb phrase, and noun phrase and verb phrase together combinedly it is a sentence. So now in deep learning, in each words, now you have to represent in a vector. So this is the first job, right? Now the next job is, once you have the vector for each word, now as you combine the each prefix, suffix, and the root word, so now here we combine multiple word to represent the phrase. So if you combine the and the cat, then you will get a vector that is noun phrase which actually represent the cat. Okay, so similarly if you combine these two, the mat, so this vector will represent basically the mat, and then the preposition phrase. So eventually this top vector will represent the full sentence, the cat sat on the mat. Okay, so this is when you give net in the sentence as the input to your network. So now you have to convert the whole sentence in a vector form. Okay, so there are other way also, like people generally concatenate this word vector also and then give. That is also one way, but this is also another way to come up with a sentence vector. Sometimes there are research also where you can see that people used to create a document vector also. Right? Combine each sentence vector into a single vector, so that will be a document vector. So this is the this representation is very much important. So that's why I am emphasizing more. And in industry, actually, we try to we face lot of problems just because of the representation, because we know that solution that that this attention model or this BERT actually will work. So we know that which DL algorithm or which DL technology will work. Okay, but to represent your text, so you have a text for a particular domain. Now how you represent your text into a embedding perfectly, and so that you get the best accuracy. And for industry, I'm saying less than 90% accuracy is not at all acceptable. Like any module they almost try near to 100% accuracy. So less than 90% accuracy, it will not have a chance for the commercialization. Unless like Google sometimes do some experiment, like if you see the Google's speech recognition or the ASR in the early days, they are very bad. I think hardly it has less than 50% accuracy, but not the other company like Apple or the Samsung. They don't commercialize like half-cooked solution or less accurate solution, because Google strategy is different, because they try to gather the data, and most of their data-driven models actually needs data. So by commercializing, their intention is to try to get more data so that they can improve. So that's why they do. But the other companies, most of the companies, and where the business are involved, like as I mentioned, that the question answer system or automated customer service system, so those, or the marketing system, so those are the system has to be perfectly accurate, otherwise there will be no use of the system. Okay, so that's why representation is very much important. So nowadays actually most of the, I can see that most of the researcher does not especially in the academic research, you guys don't follow the limitation of your system. You just try to showcase the improvement for the particular domain or for a limited data set. But if you think about a generic solution, when you think about a commercialized solution, then what are the limitation? I think this is the time actually everyone has to think towards that. And then if you guys also research like this, then your research also much more useful. If you see in at least I can see in US, like most of the top researchers actually has a collaboration with the industry, and they do research collaboratively. But I think in India it's kind of there is a gap. There are very less professor actually has a collaboration. Like we have a collaboration with Dr. Pushpak Bhattacharya, but not many. So that's why these are the limitation, and especially for the on-device solution, because in on-device you cannot use a 1 or 2 GBs of What2Vec or the glove embedding, because that will continuously hold your 2 GB of RAM of your phone, right? Then how we will use the other things? So that's not at all possible. So you have to train your own embedding, okay? And the embedding size has to be very minimal, so that it will use very less RAM, because the embedding, how much embedding size you will have, that will be your continuous RAM usage, right? So that's why representation and the embedding is very much important in the industrial system. Yeah. So now the semantic also, like earlier they used lambda calculator, and for semantic also, as I think I already covered, like those vectors forms actually this What2Vec and the graph try to represent the semantic through the vector. So if you combine each vector, it will represent the semantic, right? So the vector of all reptiles works versus the vector of some turtle moves will be different. So that is the uh, goal of representing the semantic, right? So now come to the application. So very popular application is the sentiment analysis, because for business, as I mentioned, that advertisement domain and the marketing domain is the most targeted domain where AI is being trying to be used heavily. And for that, identifying the sentiment of the user or the text is very useful. So if you see this structure, like intelligent humor has a positive sentiment, right? Now when you combine with off, it still has a positive sentiment. Then any other kind is, this is a positive, but combine it is a neutral sentiment. Now combination of these two, like any other kind of intelligent humor, is a positive sentiment. So this is the vector representation of the sentiment, right? So when you combine these two vector, so the ultimate vector representing the sentiment of this whole phrase, and then so on. Then once you have this negative sentiment, this combination, it will have a ultimately negative sentiment, right? So this is how the using vector in deep learning, everything you can represent, be it semantic, be it sentiment. So everything in whatever is your problem, you want to represent through the vector, right? And that's how the network actually try to learn in this similar fashion. That the so as I mentioned in the output layer, this is a vector, right? So you have to predict the output. So now this vector has to represent the perfect output, so that you can predict the accurate output. So that's why each vector will represent something for your task. Yeah. Now the one of the complex problem is the machine translation. So machine translation, generally we use complex recurrent network. I think everyone is aware of this. And the problem again, like you give this A, B, C, those are the word as a vector, and it will try to learn the sequence of this vector and come up with a combined sequence learning. And when you pass this sequence, whole sequence learning, then it will try to predict the output words in the targeted language, unless it will generate the end of the sentence. So there are many approaches. I think one of the most popular nowadays is the attention model, which actually outperform all those things. So yeah. So then another very interesting work I come across is that dynamic memory network. So what it's trying to do, you give a story as an input to the network or to the system, that the best way to here the input is this story, and then you give a question. Okay, so it's kind of question answering, but why they call it memory network? So here there is a one sentence, but it can be multiple sentence. So there is a sentence wise story, and so network has to memorize all those instances or all the actions or all those events, and then it has to uh, answer those questions, like if the event there is a sequence of event, then what are the questions based on the which point of the event it has to identify, and this it has to give the identify the or predict the accurate answer. So this is very interesting work, like you can refer. Yeah, so these are the many deep learning technologies. I am not going to details in this. So now coming to some of the commercialized application of Samsung. So the first most is the Bixby Talks. Bixby is the smart assistant for Samsung, like Siri or the Google Assistant. Though it was not that popular because of the late development, it's yet to be matured enough. But yeah, it can do many command level job for user. So user give the job to perform, like capture the screen and send it to Jane. So basically it can understand combination of multiple command, and then it will perform the task and then message it that screenshot to Jane. So this kind of capability are there, and you can understand the how complex this kind of developing this kind of model. Uh, and for developing this kind of model, you need individual level various NLP modules to perform, and that too within a I think fraction of seconds. So user does not want to wait, I think, even 1 second of time. So as soon as he he or she speak the command, and the command has to be identified through the ASR, and then it has to be understand by the NLU model, and then it has to perform the task. So it's very complex problem. So I was also part of this project to commercialize this system. Then Bixby has several things, like talk is that one thing that through spoken text you can give any command to perform. And another thing is the reminder. So here also you can give some command to set some reminder, and it will automatically create those reminder and automatically will alert you at the time when it has to alert. Okay, and this is the similar kind of problem also, again, like Bixby talks. Then Bixby C, like it is a visual understanding problem. Like the application is that whenever you take some picture, it will identify the objects, and it will also identify or recommend some of the actions, like the shoes case. If you like someone's shoes and if you take the picture, it will recommend it will suggest you some shopping site where you can actually buy those shoes. Or in case of the first example, if there is a historical place, it will give you the information, location information. It will navigate to the wiki page related. So those kind of applications are there. So here actually it's required visual understanding, and then the recommendation system, that based on whatever the understanding, you have to recommend something which actually user intended. You can see that action for the user are same, but the recommendation actually depends on by the understanding the image. So that's the difficulty here. Now another system I also mainly worked here, like it's called Gphical. It was commercialized, I think, 2017. That you can give any natural language input to create a calendar event. Okay, so it can be a direct command, or it can be a like you are having a chat with your friends that let's say let's go for movie. Your friend says okay, what time, when you want to go. If you say let's go Sunday night, if you say no, Sunday night I am busy, let's go Saturday night, then the other person can say that okay, let's go Saturday night, 7 p.m. done. So now by understanding the whole conversation, create that event, that Saturday night's movie in the calendar, it's very difficult job. So you can see that dialogue, and each steps the system has to identify, understand what's the dialogue is going on. That first person says Sunday night first, then the second person rejected, then second person proposed Saturday night, then first person accepted. So this kind of understanding it's required to create this kind of calendar event. So that kind of system also we commercialized. Yeah, so this is the same basically. Yeah, this is the example, like from your conversation of between two people, it understand the conversation and come up with the event for the calendar. So now you can say this is the latest Gartner Hype Cycle for emerging technologies. This published in 2020. So you can see. So earlier it used to be AI is the topmost. Now you can see that embedded AI is the topmost, and the timeline to mature this is 2 to 5 years. So within 2 to 5 years, it expected to be mature. So as I mentioned, so AI system nowadays, the focus is not only to solve the AI problem, it also now the main focus shifted from server-based solution to embedded solution or on-device solution. So that's a huge challenge actually. If you see all those NLP solution nowadays, the state of that NLP solution, those are mostly for server-based solution. And if you want to use those solution as it is in the embedded solution, you cannot use it just because of the heavy use of resource, and because in embedded system the processing power is less, most of the time you don't have the GPU, so the latency also, the processing time also increase a lot, and sometimes it could not be done. So that's why the focus shifted heavily to the embedded AI, because due to the privacy concern, like latest privacy concern among all the countries, you can like now, like Google, uh, you cannot take all the data out of the device. So you have to perform, because all the deep learning modules are data driven, right? So you have to get the data. So if you cannot take out the data from the out of device, then you cannot apply any server based solution. So you have to apply all the solution on the device, so that you can leverage all the data without hampering user privacy, as well as you can actually develop the AI systems. So that's why you can see that embedded AI is the one of the top hyped or the expected areas nowadays. Yeah. So one of the another area, this is the Internet IoT. So IoT is one of the important area for Samsung also, because Samsung has various kind of application for the home and for the uh, city also. So now you can see IoT, there is a huge hype, and it was a 2000, I think, 18 or 19 survey. So that time they assumed that the hype will be like 50 billion uh, device by 2020. So maybe it get impacted because of this COVID scenario in 2020, but that was the hype, and it will also gain, because in nowadays you can see because of the COVID, most of us actually stuck in our home. So nowadays, so for us now, improving our home automation is much more important. So now IoT will have much more hype now. So this is smart thing is basically the part of it. So smart thing basically depends on the smart cloud. So all the system like a smart city, So all the traffic signals, all the smart buildings will be connected to the smart cloud, and all the automations will be controlled from the cloud. And whereas the Samsung majorly focus on the smart home. Smart home, it will be inside the home, so there can be a one hub inside the home, and all the smart devices inside your home will be controlled through the smart hub. And I think you guys are aware of that Samsung recently launched their high-end refrigerator will actually act as a smart hub in the smart home. So these are the various application here. And also Samsung has a premium watch, so it's also we develop lot of health related application, like to monitor user health, to user daily activity, user like meals and everything, and to identify and predict and recommend the health related stuff to the user. And then Samsung also recently tied up with some automotive companies like Harman. Harman has a automotive system, so there also the target is to create the automated car. So this is also a one visual understanding problem purely, not NLP, but this is also one area we are working on. Yeah. So lastly, we in I think 2018 we organized one hackathon where we gave two challenge of SMS classification and gesture recognition. So one is from NLP and one is for visual understanding. And many students from institutes or many like employees from various companies participated in this hackathon, and also we awarded the top winners. So I think this kind of initiative actually brings um, or the bridge the gap between the academic research and the industry research, because this kind of initiative actually will showcase like what actually required, because that time in 2018 we had a project where we need this is SMS classification problem for various things. So we want to find out a perfect solution for this on-device SMS classification. So that actually give the opportunity for the students or the researchers to understand what kind of specific work is going on in the industry, and also like focus their research slightly towards that. Yeah, so I guess I covered. I want to cover some what to wake things, but I guess it's almost time. So let's stop here. If you have any questions, then I can take. Hello.
Okay. Sir, good evening, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, how far convolutional neural networks will be useful for text analytics?
Actually, there are many evidence that, especially for the text classification or for the short text classification, there are many attempts made to use the CNN for the short text classification, and also in several evidence we have, even in our current project also we use that, and we also have that evidence that CNN sometimes outperform some of the basic neural network, like fully connected network or the SVM. So it's very evident that CNN is very useful. But as I mentioned, the challenge is to how to give the input, how to represent the text, and that depends a lot, because once you represent the text, because generally in RNN you give the word input, like as a one by one word you give input, but in CNN what we do, we create the sentence matrix, right? Each row will represent the word, and then the full matrix represent the sentence. So this kind of representation, if you can do properly, then yes, CNN actually can outperform the other deep learning algorithms.
Sir, is it possible to use word embeddings along with the CNN?
Yes, definitely. Because let's say you want to, let's say SMS classification problem. Okay. So now you have a SMS. So how you will give the input to the CNN? So generally CNN works better in a matrix, on a matrix, right?
Yes.
So you have to convert your sentence in a matrix. So the easiest way that if you have use what to wake or glove, then you will have vector for your each word, right, in the SMS.
Yes.
Now if you represent, let's say you use a 100 size vector for what to wake. Now each word will be a 100 size vector.
Dimension, 100 dimensions.
100 dimensions, right? Now let's say your maximum length of the sentence is 20. Okay. So now if you have a 20 words, then you will have a 100 cross 20 matrix to represent the sentence, right?
Yes.
And then if you give input to the CNN, then it will just work like the image. Image is also a matrix. If you consider that grayscale image, but like RGB has this 3 layer, right? If you have a grayscale, if you have a 1 layer, so basically one channel, one matrix will be there. So it will be like the image only, and then you can apply those filters, and then it can actually classify, because at the end, let's say you have 3 convolution layer, so 3 convolution layer will identify some pattern, and then ultimately you have to apply some fully connected layer to apply softmax, because it's a classification problem, right? So you have to apply softmax to identify the appropriate class. So combination of CNN and the fully connected network is very useful. So that has been evident. But yeah, as I mentioned, you have to try out, like as I mentioned, now if you represent each word as a row versus if you represent each word as a column, how it will perform better, that you have to experiment for your application. So that's why representation is important, and then the normal set of that CNN plus fully connected network will do the job for you.
So based on your experience, what kind of word embedding model will be useful while working with CNN to get a better result?
It depends on the application. If you are targeting a domain specific application, let's say you want to classify only shopping domain message, right? So now shopping domain message, it requires shopping domain understanding only. It does not require, let's say, news domain understanding or sports domain understanding, right? So the best way is to use some generic embedding like what to wake and the glove, and then you trained your embedding on top of the glove, because glove will have a generic embedding, right? It will represent a generic semantic. It will not, that vector will not represent for the shopping domain specifically. So now if you train your glove embedding on your shopping domain data, then what will happen, along with this generic embedding on top of it, the shopping domain semantics also it will learn. The embedding will learn the shopping domain semantic also. So it will be combination of generic domain plus your domain. So that is the best case we experimented. And otherwise, if you're targeting the solution for a generic domain, then generally glove or the what to wake is the good enough. That time you don't need to retain your embedding again.
Means if we are working over a specific domain, so our trained data has to be trained over specifically a particular domain as well as generic domain. So if in that case, we will get a better result.
Not necessary, like a generic domain, what I mean. So let's say you don't have generic domain data, right? But when you take the embedding from the glove, because glove already trained on I think more than 1 billion data from the Wikipedia and the news domain, right? So the glove embedding is already has generic domain understanding, right? But it does not, that embedding does not have your domain understanding. So
Okay.
once you take the glove embedding as it is, then you are getting the generic domain understanding. So you don't need to specifically train your network on the generic domain.
Okay.
So what you will do, you will take the glove embedding which have generic domain understanding. Now you train on top of it using your domain specific data. So, but what I mean to say, let's say you have a network. So let me show, my screen is still visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let's go to uh, yes. So let's think about this network. So why it is not visible? Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Visible. It is visible.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Visible, sir. Visible, sir.
Uh, okay. Actually, it's not visible to me. Okay. Okay. Let's do it this way. Yeah. So let's say this is their input, right? So let's say this input is from the glove embedding.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now initially glove embedding will have the generic level understanding, generic domain understanding, right? Now you train your domain data using your domain data, right? So now while training, you will back propagate, right? To optimize your weightage.
Weightage.
So now if you back propagate till this embedding layer, what will happen? This embedding, which was initially the glove embedding, will change.
Okay.
If you back propagate till this layer, then this glove embedding will not change. It will remain the same.
Okay.
Got my point?
Yes.
So you have to back propagate from outer layer to the input layer. So if you stop before input layer, then your input layer will not get changed. So input layer is basically your embedding layer.
Yes. Yes.
So if you want to train the glove embedding specific to a domain, then you have to back propagate till the embedding layer, the input layer. Then
Yes. Yes.
what will happen? This glove embedding will get changed according to your domain. Okay. So then after training, whatever the embedding you will have, that will have the combination of both generic domain understanding as well as your domain understanding. But if you
So,
don't, yeah,
okay. Okay, that means the back propagation we have to include up to the word embedding layer also.
exactly. So if you want to train on your domain, if you want to train or update the embedding on basis of your domain data.
Okay. So, can you give any reference how to do that? How do we back propagate up to the word embedding layer?
That will be coding specific. I think you can search many examples like how to train the embedding. Like when you actually add the like implement the back propagation function. So you have to basically add this layer inside your back propagation function. Then your gradient will be calculated and back propagation will happen till the input layer.
Okay, sir. Okay. Then, sir, how far the VGGNet or ResNet, these models will be useful for text and text classification? These will get into the accurate result over there.
Uh, ResNet can be useful, but I did not find out any evidence where it outperformed the sequence like RNN, like LSTM, or the fully connected architecture. But only I can see that there are papers where using CNN they outperform those architecture accuracy.
Okay, sir. So, thank you for answering my questions, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome. Yes. Anything more?
So, but there is one more question in the comment section.
Okay.
I will.
Sorry. Okay. So which one? Mr. Deepak's question?
Also from Avinash Trivedi.
Okay. So is there any use of information extraction in on-device application? Please give. Yes, yes. Actually, it's a very useful application. Like for most of the application, you need information extraction. So as I mentioned, like the Bixby application. So this, right? So the command is capture the screens and text it to Jane. So if you see, you have to extract all those information from this command. First of all, you have to identify there are two command, so that you have to extract, and from each command you have to extract the action. Basically, the capture is the action, and what you capture, it wants to capture screen. Then second command, text is the command. So text means the message, and then text to whom, the Jane. Jane is basically using any you will extract, right? So this kind of information extraction is required everywhere. Like whenever you understand the input, so after understanding the input, what you will do, so for that definitely you have to extract those information. And another example is basically very relevant for our current project. So our current project is to understand the user. So we are developing some system to personalize all the service on the device, right? So for personalize all the service, what basic requirement you need, that first you have to understand the user. And how you understand the user? You have to actually understand all the user data. So user data means that what the message user receives, or what the notification user receives, or what the calendar event user add. So understanding those is basically required the information extraction. So just give an example. So if you want to understand the message, let's say as I gave the SMS classification example, after classifying, let's say you understand it's a shopping domain message, right? So now after understanding that it's a shopping domain message, now you have to extract that which are the vendor that user actually purchased the product, and which are the product actually user purchased. Then generally those message has a delivery date. Then you have to extract the delivery date or the status, whether it is like shipped or delivered or out for delivery. So those kind of status you have to extract. So these are the extraction problems, actually very useful for understanding any user data. So by extracting those things, you actually understand, okay, this product user purchased, and these are the vendor users actually frequently purchase the product from, or this kind of product actually user purchase from this vendor, or that kind other kind of product user purchase from that vendor. And the event also, like whether this product is delivered or shipped, or user place some return. So those information are very useful, and for this you definitely need information extraction. Okay. So and it's a actually in commercial level, it's right now it's open domain problem, because in generic domain, if you think about, it's a very tough problem. You cannot extract everything. So as I mentioned, domain specific, like shopping domain, you can train in shopping domain, but if you give any message, it will not work. So to develop a generic model, it's very difficult. Okay, I guess. Okay, yeah. Okay, so next one is procedure and the requirements to collaborate with industry or Samsung in particular. No need to reply if the question is no, it's not out of the context. Yeah, the collaboration, there are very much possibility, but generally in Samsung is what I saw over the first 5 or 6 years. It's very conservative, and procedure, like official procedures are very lengthy. But yeah, if we are working, like as I mentioned, like if you working to specifically for industry level or commercial level application, or the specifically like not only application, like to develop a commercial solution, you have to focus a lot of other things. Accuracy is the most one, then the resource, the latency, everything. So if you are interested to work on this kind of thing, then maybe it's possible. So better, I think you need to keep touch with ourselves, and then when the requirement is there, definitely we do collaboration. Okay, I guess next one I can take up. What are the real world application of question answering system? Is there any scope like to be used as on-device application? There are many question answering application like now you can see like Google and all the search engines basically going towards the question answering. So now search engine is no longer only search engine. You can also ask question, and instead of giving through some bunch of document, it's also identify the answer and give as a top result. So that is the one most relevant IT application. And other I can see that customer service generally customer has a lot of questions, so there also you need to implement a question answering system. So there are many scope for question answering systems in industry also. On device question answering, maybe like for the personalization, like let's say in Bixby Talks, currently Bixby Talks does not support beyond command, but if it supports some question like let's say you want to do some query on your calendar or on your contacts or on your settings, like what settings is there, or is there any event is there or not. So this kind of basic question answerings definitely are possible, and also we are working on that, so to support beyond command, so that Bixby and also like what is the weather and what is the time, this kind of basic question generally naturally it supports. But beyond that also, like specific to some data, some event or some activity, that also we are working on that specifically for on-device question answering as an on-device application. Yeah. Okay, any more?
Is there any more question, participants?
Okay, one more I have. Is it feasible for a word and sentence vector to be same? Ideally, it should not be, because word vector represent the semantic in the word level, and the sentence vector represent the semantic in the sentence level. Like this is the ideal, this is the goal, right? So if you want to represent the semantic, then these two, word vector and the sentence vector, should be different. But yeah, so if you plot as a metric type is same for both. Yeah, so as I mentioned, like I will go again, just a minute. So as I mentioned, so these are the word vector, right? And you can combine and come up with a one single sentence vector. Okay, so instead of that, you can represent this sentence also. If you want to represent in a matrix, so you just concatenate this vector. Let's say each column represent one word, so it will be one matrix, right? So that will be another way of representing sentence. But what happened, or you can like also concatenate one after another to get a one long vector. But the problem will happen that your vector size, even it is a matrix or even it's a single vector, it will increase a lot if this each vector has 100 dimension, as I mentioned, and if your sentence length max length is 20, then it will be 2000 size vector if you concatenate, and the matrix also will have a 2000 element. But combining these two vector to come up, let's say if it is 100 size vector, it will be, let's say, 200 size vector. So it will not increase the dimension as a whole, but try to represent the semantic of the full sentence. So this is the concept. So if you can afford to have a matrix or a long vector, then you can concatenate. That will also somehow represent a semantic individual level, and it was experimented that it also can perform in a good way. Because what happened, to find out this combined vector, it's very difficult job. So this is not fully accurate. So that's why it will lose some information eventually if you combine. So if you give this information versus the full matrix, there will be some loss here, unless you have a perfect embedding solution for the sentence embedding. So that is, I think, current technology doesn't have the perfect solution. I guess I answer.
So,
Okay.
is there any more question from the participant?
Yeah, one more.
Okay.
Can't we represent word as a imaginary number? No, imaginary number. I think we can try. I don't know. I did not see any experiment on that, but yeah. But what happened, that imaginary number is a complex space, right? So if you try to represent through imaginary number, the problem became more complex again. So vector space became much more complex. So you want to, the network learning becomes more complex. So I think that's why the state of the art, the word embedding does not use complex number, imaginary number. So, but who knows? I think if our systems computation power increase and we can perform much complex algorithm or the architecture, then some days it may possible. But as of now, there is no evidence that using imaginary number it's outperform the GLAV or word2vec. So real number is good enough, I guess. Okay. I guess no more question. Yeah.
No more question. Okay, so let's thank the speaker for a wonderful talk and for clearing our doubts. Sakshi, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your interesting presentation. It was really very much interesting, and thank you everyone for making the workshop very much interesting. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure for me to have this opportunity. So I guess my motive was clear. So if you all, because you are the all upcoming researchers, be it the faculty or the especially the PhD scholars. So if you, instead of only like solving a particular problem, if you focus on realistic problem, that will be more useful, and also your work will be more visible in the for the outside world. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you again. I think.
Thank you, Pinaki.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, you all.
Good night. And for the participants, we will again meet tomorrow at 5:30. That is the day 4 of the FDP. The session starts at 5:30 tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. tomorrow. Okay. Okay, then we can leave the meeting now. Then good night.
Bye.
Bye.